of things that you love, what's one book that has changed your life?
I'm going to go a little afield with this. I'm thinking about it. Because this is not a genre I write in or ever would write in. And this is not by any means my favorite author, but I do think that probably my favorite book in the entire world is Weave World by Clive Barker. It is a book that I had never heard of him. This was, I would have been, I don't know, a teenager. It wouldn't have been out very long anyway. I discovered it remaindered, like in the remainder bin for like $1 or whatever, in a bookshop in the White Mountains of New Hampshire, North Conway to be exact. Shout out to the White Mountains. And just picked it up because it had kind of an interesting cover. And I think there was probably a blurb, a Stephen King blurb. I think Steve King blurbed that book. I've seen The Future of Horror, and its name is Clive Barker. That was everywhere for a while. They actually are nothing alike. They write nothing alike. So that's wild. It is the first book I ever read, I think, that was so utterly fantastical and yet completely immersive. There was a point at which I was reading it and just genuinely so immersed in the fantasy world that he created that I believed in it. I believed in it 100% as fully as I believed in the actual real world that I live in. And while it is not urban fantasy, it is very much horror. The whole point of that novel is that this other world exists just butted right up against ours, and you could fall into it at any time, which is part of why urban fantasy is so my jam. I love that idea of this whole kind of urban fantasy world living beside us that most of the normals don't know anything about. You know, recent like TV series like Grimm was a TV series where that happened a lot. I don't know if you ever saw that, but I really liked that story, well, for a while. And most urban fantasy is that there, it's not the secret world is kind of not known, and the whole process of the hero or heroine becoming introduced to that. I love that. I love the world that's right up against our world, and you could fall in at any minute, and it's totally alien, and you have to rethink everything you thought you knew. He's also a master of just like language and imagery, and it's just a very good book, technically speaking. But it was the first book that ever made me feel like that. And I think it's been really important to my formation as an author to understand that you have to write things that are immersive, even if it's just my billionaire nonsense, figuring out what's the most expensive restaurant in New York. I look at the menu, I look at the pictures of the hotel rooms, I look at all of that stuff, and I try to write really immersively. And I think that makes a humongous difference. So that is the book I would pick.